today's opening trap is one that, to be honest, I'm reluctant to give away because I've probably sprung it 10 times myself, and I'd really like to keep springing it, so I'm hoping that all of you watching the video will be able to use this trap, and none of my opponents will watch this video because I still really want to use it. So, this is a King's Gambit line, so we're going to open with the King's Gambit with e4, e5, pawn f4. Now black needs to take this pawn, which is unfortunate because a lot of times black does decline the King's Gambit, which saps some of the fun out of the King's Gambit. A knight f3, pawn to g5 here, and now knight c3. So I really like this line. It's recommended in John Shaw's book on the King's Gambit, and it creates a lot of interesting opportunities for play. And honestly, if I could get this most of the time I play the King's Gambit, I would play a lot more King's Gambits in classical games. So g4 now, attacking the knight on f3 looks like a pretty good move, and it still works. But the most natural line is the trap that we're looking for. The knight steps up, the queen comes into h4 with check, pawn to g3. This looks like it's just winning for black. Pawn takes, and queen takes g4. Now, black can trade queens and even win a pawn, but white gets good compensation and is probably even better if black does choose to trade queens. So, the tactical line for black, the trap that you can fall into here, is pawn g2. And this is a 2 question mark move, basically a losing move. It looks really good at first, and again, I've probably had this like 10 times in games myself. You now take the queen, and after pawn takes rook, black is up a rook, but the move queen to h5 is a winning move. f7 is hit, and that is a huge problem. The only move to defend is knight h6, but d4 simply prepares to take the knight and then take on f7. Black's best chance is pawn d6, attacking the knight, and then you take the knight, threatening f7, take here, and then queen takes check is a fork, picking up the rook on h8. Now, after you win the rook on h8, it's like +1, +1.5. It's a winning position, but against best play from black, it's still something that black might be able to swindle you out of, and I've not won every game I've had from here, but still, probably objectively winning and a great opening trap for you to try in your games. So, how should black play instead? Well, I have 2 suggestions. The first one is if we back up, black doesn't need to get into all of this stuff anyway. If back here, instead of pushing the pawn to g4, black simply plays the most popular move, knight to c6. Now, white does have compensation here, and I kind of enjoy playing these positions, but it is still a strong way for black to play. You just fianchetto the bishop, you keep the pawn on g5, and forego these tactical ideas, and you get a pretty good position. The other way to play that I have had knowledgeable people play against me is pawn to g4 instead of knight to c6, like going into the trap, but after knight e5, you forego queen h4 check right away when g3 leads into those good lines that we looked at. Instead, you play knight c6 here, and after knight takes g4, basically forced, otherwise black is pretty much winning. You now have queen h4 check. Because of the threats to the knight, you have to play back here knight f2, but after knight f2, bishop c5 is a big problem. A queen move walks into knight d4, so you have to play pawn d4 here, ditching this pawn on d4. After bishop takes d4, renewing the threat here, queen f3, and you get this weird position that Stockfish says is about equal. It is kind of dynamically balanced, but this is a position I haven't really enjoyed playing for white. I think black can just play natural developing moves. Don't go for knight b4 like the one person in the database did, and black gets a pretty good position here. So I hope that you have enjoyed that opening trap. I hope you get to spring it against someone, and subscribe if you want to check out more cool opening traps to try out in your games.